Good morning, Your Excellency, and we would like to thank you for the opportunity for taking time to talk to West Africa Democracy Radio, Dakar.
Good morning. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Gambia is a country with plenty of history, particularly after 22 years of dictatorship and 6 years into democracy. How would you compare the Gambia then and the Gambia now?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have this interview with you. As you mentioned, after 2 decades of dictatorship and almost 7 years of democracy, as you can imagine, things have improved. Not least in terms of the media. I think that's the first area where you have a very clear difference. In the past, everybody talked about the lack of media freedom, but now you see the proliferation of media, both print, digital, and other media forms, and the presence especially in terms of social media, all the attacks on government and other areas, and I think that's the media freedom. I think is one that is very clear, and even as people are observing, in various assessments, the Gambia is rising in terms of transparency and things of that sort. I think this is something that we are very proud of. The space in the country in terms of human rights, I dare say, the number of people who are expressing, their views publicly is clear for everybody to see. So definitely, this is something that we say the media space, the democratic space, is something that we feel is very different over this period.
Well, Your Excellency, what would you consider as major progress in all of this that you've mentioned?
I mean, the major progress, like I said, is democracy, because in fact it has come to a point where it's actually becoming a challenge, because people now feel that they can say or do anything they want. Now people say, "Oh, we are in a democracy. We can do everything that we want." In the past, I'm sure you will realize that even to take up some cases, some lawyers are afraid to take up some cases. Now, everybody can take up any case without any fear or favor. I think maybe the first thing, as you said, like the separation of powers is very manifest in this country. There is no interference in the judiciary. We have seen various instances where the National Assembly has flexed their muscles as far as their function is concerned. And I think this is something that we feel that is very manifest and we are very proud of as a government.
Well, every country is proud of democracy. What would you say this was as a cost to the Gambia?
I mean, democracy, like you're all very proud of democracy, but again, like over the years, the 22 years of dictatorship, a lot of things have happened, and I think one of the things that one has to talk about is actually reconciliation. Because I normally say there is no family that is not affected, by the 22 years of dictatorship in terms of forceful disappearances. The TRRC has revealed, some people who were forcefully disappeared, some people who were, purportedly killed. So there is no family that is not touched. But to move forward, we have to have reconciliation. And I think this is one of our biggest challenges as a country and the people.
The biggest challenges are as people and country. But in the midst of these, sir, Your Excellency, I mean, there are still complaints from different sections of the population regarding some imbalances in social development, economy, rights abuses, as well as security. How exactly is the government addressing some of these issues?
Yeah, thank you very much. First thing is security sector reform. I think since this government came to power, there has been a lot of talk about security sector reform, and the government has actually moved very fast on that. As you imagine, again, the security, because of under two decades of dictatorship, the mindset will take time for it to change. And I think what we are doing as a government, first of all, we start talking about right sizing initially people actually felt maybe security forces were too large. In fact, we have gone to a point where now we don't have even sufficient numbers. But what the government is doing is now to try to make it more professional. You have, like what is regarded as the right size of forces, but then professional size. And of course, we are also working with partners to make sure that we have some professional training in terms of staff colleges for all sections of the security force, whether it's police, the army or other forces. Again, yes, things like I said, I talked about the separation of powers. Sometimes people want things to happen very quickly, but the judiciary is independent. You cannot force them to work faster than they can. They have their own challenges in terms of the right number of judges, particularly Gambian judges. Of course, we are working with our partners in the sub-region and beyond to get some technical assistance as far as that is concerned. But I think this is some of the challenges, but hopefully, we will get there. We'll get there soon.
And talking about security sector reforms, of course, we've seen that this is President Barrow's, one of his main, issues that he really wants to tackle. But somehow of the view that it's like you said, it's been a while now we've been talking about the security sector reform, and recently, of course, we've seen some insecurities within the country. In fact, a recent report by Afrobarometer says that majority of Gambians feel they don't feel safe. So that brings into the question of when will this security sector reform come into effect?
Okay, you talk about it, Afrobarometer. Again, that's perception. We cannot agree about perception. But what you can talk about is what you are doing on the ground. And that's what I'm saying, again, because, you see, the paradox is that when we talk about security sector reform, there was this talk of not recruiting. And I think for many years, I think it's only this year that we started recruiting as far as the security services are concerned. Imagine for 6 years, you are not recruiting. There's a lot of attrition. Some retire, there are other natural attrition as far as security forces are concerned, to a point where now you are below, minimum standards as far as the ratio of forces and population is concerned. So this contributes part of the feeling of insecurity as far as some quarters are concerned. Remember, not all the forces are actually on the beat as they call it. So these are some of the challenges. But like I said, from this year now, we started recruiting. Hopefully, over time, we'll be able to have the sufficient numbers that can be patrolling regularly to make people feel safer.
Quickly, sir, before I let the next question to be asked by my colleague here, you've mentioned about democracy, freedom of expression, of course, and I have to give that credit to your government. That is very true. The environment is really has changed compared to the previous government. But again, recently we've seen that the Public Regulatory Authority, that is PURA, has for a little while now not been granting, of course, permit for people to operate radios, for example, and some in the section of the public saying that they see it as a way of curtailing the media. What would you say to that?
No, I would say, again, like as a perception, I would say no to that. In actual fact, I had the opportunity of having that direct discussion with the Director General of PURA. There were some considerations that are done to regulate certain things internally, but now he has told me that in fact it's going to be open up. In fact, I think as we speak, it would have been done by now. It has nothing to do with suppressing, because sometimes also if you don't have proper regulations, it becomes a challenge. I think that was part of the problem. Now that they have resolved all of that, they are going to open up. Some people had their applications pending for some time, but now that is going to be lifted. Yeah.
Also, let's come to your forte, which is education. We know there are several challenges across Africa, and there are also issues here in the Gambia. How is your government addressing the education system here, the challenges facing the education system?
Thank you very much. I think the education system, first of all, what type of education system do we talk about? People keep talking about let's going back to the past. And I keep reminding people, what we had in the past was an elitist form of education, whereby you decide who should continue and who should not. In other words, a lot of people were pushed out of the system, all right? Now, if you push in the early 90s, the system allowed only, in fact, less than 20% of population who start grade 1 will have access to high school. So 80% will be pushed out of the system. What are they doing in the system? All right, so that's why you have to change the system to make sure that everybody has access. When you talk about basic education, that means everybody should have a minimum of this. That's the foundation. All right, and I think this is also another something that has to be very clarified. When you say foundation, you don't build your house and stop at the foundation. You have to continue, but that means every house must have a foundation. So this government said the foundation is basic education. Everybody must have a minimum of a basic education and then continue. Now with that comes with challenges, whereby your resource base is limited, and you want to have everybody in school, and at the time, not every community has a school. That means you have to expand the system, and at the same time provide the quality, which is a challenge that people talk about. All right, because as you go high in the education ladder, the unit cost of education also increases, and at the same time you want to reduce the distance that the children travel to go to school. So these are some of the challenges. And again, I'm sure you are aware, Gambia is part of the West Africa system called WAEC, West African Examination Council, whereby you moderate the same type of exam. You know, for all the 5 member countries, we sit to the same exam at the same time. So these are some of the challenges. And again, I think at the level of WAEC, they are trying to see how it is addressed, so that more people, because any system that have very few people passing is not a good system. All right, in many systems you have to see how to make sure that more people pass and go through and contribute as far as the economy.
Now, what about the level of the government? How are they addressing these challenges?
I mean, the level of the government, like I said, first of all, in terms of access, government has, at the level of Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, they have a policy that no child should travel more than 2 kilometers to school. That means you are now constructing classroom, and with partners in the NGOs and CBOs, they are constructing, some thousands of classrooms. I have to say, may take this opportunity to congratulate the MRT Holland Foundation, which is building more than 1,000 classrooms in this country, to make sure that is available. They are also contributing in terms of improving the quality of teachers at the teacher training level, both pre-service and in-service training. Expenditure in education is also increasing, because one of the barriers to education is cost. So therefore, the government actually had, since 2015, had declared free education, up to the secondary level. All right, that means that for all public schools, the parents are not spending anything on education, except maybe for uniforms, and other things. But for books and other materials, everything is provided for by the government, which in itself is a challenge.
Well, so let me take you to another issue that is of concern, not just to the Gambia, but to West Africa, but particularly the issue of irregular migration. Now, in the past few months, about almost every boat that lands in foreign shores have counted youth from the Gambia. It's reported also that government is yet to account for the 200 migrants missing. Now, what is your government's stand on this issue?
The government, first of all, is saying no to illegal migration. Government is doing a lot of efforts together with partners to stem this illegal migration, because the illegal migration is claiming the youth of this country, who are the futures of our country. And unfortunately, unknown to many people, a lot of these people are going with skills that are needed in our society. You mentioned the missing. I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is actually still following that up with partners, to try to help us, because we still don't know much about the 200 who's missing. But we are still following with partners to see whatever support they can give to identify them. The government is trying to do sensitization, But again, when people think that the only option is to emigrate, whatever the means. It's difficult. Yes, there are challenges in terms of availability of jobs, but government is trying all its good to help work with the private sector to create jobs. Because it's the private sector that creates jobs, but government provides the environment for the private sector to create those jobs. But if people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, I received some returnees in my office some time ago, and one of them told me that his mother actually sold his compound, her compound rather, to finance his journey. Now, so how do you reconcile that? People go abroad to come and buy a house. You sell your house to travel. So it's very difficult for government to address that. But we'll continue the sensitization of the public, to tell them that people can make it in this country. That is why you have programs like the Techifi program through the Ministry of Trade and other partners, the youth empowerment program, just to make sure that opportunities are created for the youths in this country.
Well, Your Excellency, just for clarification's sake, I would like to know the progress made so far in those 200 missing migrants. You mentioned the Ministry of Foreign Affairs handling and investigating. Has there been any progress on that issue as we speak? Yeah,
like I said, we are still continuing. We still don't have information. We are still communicating with all partners in the sub-region. Again, we have limited capacity in terms of surveillance as far as the Navy or other equipment is concerned. That's why you have to rely on partners who have the capacity, the satellites and stuff like that. European partners, but still no breakthrough.
But how has the agreement been between the Gambia and the European Union in terms of this irregular migration issue?
The agreement, I think what is happening is that a lot of these people went to Europe and claimed asylum. Now, their asylum cases have gone through the whole legal process as far as those countries are concerned. And after, as you know, after all this process is done, then they are repatriated. Now, the issue with the European countries is that they wanted to bring in en masse. The government is saying we cannot handle that capacity to allow all of them to come like that. That's why they have to come in drips. And before that, they have to do an assessment of these people that are coming back. And then, because one, you have to establish whether they are Gambians in the first place, because we don't have any right to reject our own people. But we want to establish whether they are Gambians. And two, there has to be proper process in terms of preparing them when they come. One of the challenges we continue to have is probably the socio-economic support, the psychosocial support that they need when they arrive. We are still working with partners. There are still some challenges to that and more to be done, but we are working with partners to improve that. But these are the issues we have at the moment. With the pressure in the European countries from their own people is to push people out. But we are saying at this point we don't have the capacity to handle all of those numbers unless we put things in place to actually resettle them easily when they come back.
But is the government putting things in place?
The government is working, like I said, we are doing our best. Right now we have challenges. Like I mentioned, the issue of psychosocial support. These are skills that are absent. But we are working with partners to make sure that we put them in place. All right. We are seeing the rise of the extreme rights in Europe, which is actually pushing this agenda. So we have to be aware of that. But with budget restraints, also it becomes very difficult for government to venture into this. Yeah.
Well, Your Excellency, another worrying issue which took center stage is the 70 children, mostly babies, who died from the cough syrup, the killer cough syrup. And we understand that the families of these children are suing the government and also the pharmaceutical company for what they call negligence. What is your government doing about this? And is the government also making an effort to explore areas of legal action against the made-in pharmaceutical and other local exporters of this killer syrup?
Thank you very much. First of all, government, we express sadness that people have lost their life, and we sympathize with the families. But government has actually instituted some investigation. The report was finalized and submitted to the president, and the president had actually accepted the recommendations of that committee. Yes, we are aware that some families, have decided to set up some legal action as they feel against government and the Median Pharmaceutical. But as far as the report is concerned, like I said, government has accepted the recommendation of the report, which includes, because we accept that there have been some system that we are supposed to be put in place which are not. The report is now out in public. The lab that was supposed to be established is not. It's one of the challenges that government is now working with partners to actually construct a quality food and drug lab to do that. Government also, in terms of lapses as far as the Medicine Control Agency is concerned, government has accepted the recommendation to terminate the service of the controller and the deputy. I think that has already been implemented. Government is also working with some legal experts to see how to bring the case against Median Pharmaceutical and the other drug company. That is in progress. Yes.
Okay, just to follow up on that, maybe you can also list a few other recommendations made by the committee that was submitted to the government, to the president.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the report is in public. What is like to be more vigilant again, because in the absence of drug control lab, I mean, it's become very difficult for the agency.
Let's talk about, the Gambia's economy, Your Excellency. And just this morning I've read a report that shows that Gambia is one of a few countries in West Africa that are actually really improving in terms of recoveries. And reports also indicate that there are some recoveries after the COVID-19 lockdown, of course, especially in the tourism sector, with the GDP expected to reach $2.39 billion by the end of 2023. How is your government, doing to achieve these, of course, these prospects?
Yeah, thank you very much. In terms of tourist arrivals, I think, yes, there has been improvement, and we have not yet reached the pre-COVID level, but I think the last season is reported that we have actually arrivals of about 180,000. This year we are hoping maybe it will be close to 190 or even 200,000 tourists. In fact, we already have indication that the tourist season is going to expand. I think we are going to have something like 8 months. 8 months of season, rather than this 6 to 7 months. So that is something we expect. And I'm sure you'll also realize that because the construction industry is one of the big inputs as far as GDP is concerned, and the construction industry is actually booming, and because government has actually liberalized that sector, working with partners. Some of the challenges that we have in terms of some of the inputs in the construction industry, government is also working with the various, like for example, the beton, which the only source was in Senegal. Now government is working with other countries like the Cape Verde, Sierra Leone, and Guinea-Bissau to source it from those areas. So we expect that as construction continues, not least the construction of the OIC roads also contribute as far as the economy is concerned. So we are hopeful that this, again, coming back to the open space as far as the democracy is concerned, because where there is democracy, people feel confident. There is business confidence. That also meant that businesses are now coming in. Development partners that left the country are now coming back, and these are all bringing in some valuable inputs as far as the economy is concerned. So we are actually hopeful that, in fact, the GDP growth is going to be even greater than what is projected. Yes.
So you're very right there when you say, of course, recoveries have been made since after the COVID-19. Of course, arrivals have really increased, but the tourism sector is one particular sector that is of great importance to the government of the Gambia in terms of revenue generation rather. But we've seen that recently, the sector has been criticized of probably not taking issues seriously. For example, the road leading to Poco Loco, the road is in dilapidated condition. It is really embarrassing to see, for tourists to see those issues of that nature. What is your government doing to take care of some of the roads within the tourism development area? Because Gambians feel these are things that the government should quickly take care of.
Again, and they have the right to feel that. But again, as you know, things don't work that quickly as far as the civil service is concerned. And His Excellency President Barrow has indicated that he has plans to build 1,000 kilometers of road. And most of this is actually in the tourism development area. And then when you start constructing, of course, people are disturbed. They say, oh, they are doing all this construction. They are disturbing the traffic and stuff like that. But yes, and most of the time, just for your information, most of it is actually coming from our own local resources. All right, we are not getting any loans or grants from anywhere to do that. So that also puts pressure on the budget. So it's only a limited number of kilometers that we can do annually as far as the budget is concerned. Until hopefully, maybe as we get more support from other partners through grants, then we can increase that. The other issue, recently everybody keeps talking about the Senegal Bridge, the Africa 50. Now, one of the agreements is that the proceeds you are getting from that bridge should actually be plowed back into the construction of roads. That is why we felt that...
Of the roads in the Gambia?
Of the roads in the Gambia, all right? Because if you recall, the Senegal Bridge was a grant from the African Development Bank.
Yes.
Or I said it's a grant from the African Development Bank, and African Development Bank is also helping us because Africa 50 is actually an institution of the African Development Bank, all right, to help member countries to see how to better manage their infrastructure. So all the proceeds we get there should be plowed back into the construction of the roads in country. Because road construction is one area where it's very difficult for partners to come in. All right, they would rather come in social sectors, rather than in those areas. So hopefully, when that kicks off, the government will be in a better position to actually construct or rehabilitate more roads, as the case may be.
Well, Your Excellency, aside tourism, one main income for the Gambia is fishing, which over the years has sparked controversies and friction between the state and the population due to overfishing by foreign vessels. Is the government responsive to these concerns, and how is the problem being addressed?
Yes, the government is responsive to this concern, and one of the problems is that some of these fishing vessels are actually fishing in restricted areas. But because the government has challenges as far as the Navy is concerned, we don't have the patrol boats that can patrol those areas. As we speak, we have support from some partners from Europe that are actually help in monitoring those areas. And in fact, I think last week or a couple of weeks ago, some 3 boats were caught, illegally.
Foreign vessels.
Yes, foreign vessels illegally fishing in those areas, and I think they have been escorted back to port. And very soon, I'm sure they will be processed through the court. But these are the challenges that we have. But we are also working with partners to see how to capacitize the Navy to be able to patrol those areas to prevent illegal fishing. Because illegal fishing is actually the main problem. Because normally when these vessels are given permission to fish, they are given permission to fish specific fishes, which is different from what is eaten locally. And I think that has to be made very clear. You don't give them permission to fish what is consumed locally. All right. So and it's very clear in their license.
Your Excellency, just a follow-up question to that. Some are of the view that if the government really wants to be serious about fishing and these illegal vessels, of course, fishing within the territorial waters, the question is how much investment are they doing? For example, you spoke about, trying to capacitize the Navy. Is the government ready, for example, to inculcate it in the budget to have boats being bought over here and there to ensure that, our territorial waters are being protected?
Yeah, the government is actually doing that. In fact, as we speak, cabinet had approved the purchase of one of those vessels because it's very expensive. And I think even the last cabinet had approved it, but by the time they started the procurement process, I think the quotation, shot up exponentially. So that was why they had to review. But even last a couple of cabinet meetings ago, the issue came up, and cabinet had given approval for the Minister of Fisheries to buy that on behalf of the Navy. But that notwithstanding, you still have to continue to discuss with partners to see how they can support in those areas.
No, Your Excellency, let's take you up on some other issues now. Senegal and the Gambia share so much in common, and of course lately there have been some political turmoil in that country. How is that affecting the Gambia?
Yeah, I mean, like they say, if Senegal coughs, Gambia sneezes. We are one people, not only in terms of cultural, but even the economies are intertwined. A lot of goods are coming from Senegal to the Gambia, and some are also coming from the Gambia to Senegal. We are aware of events that are happening there, and we are also monitoring. And I think at the level of the two presidents, President Macky Sall and President Barrow, everybody is aware of the close relationship. And in fact, they have just concluded a presidential council between the two countries. And I know that between them, they are consulting each other on a regular basis, both formally and informally. But at this point, like I said, sometimes it affects our goods that are coming from Senegal. We know that even as this last incident, there were some blockages, particularly on the southern border with Senegal. It affected even some officials. But we are hoping that peace will prevail through various means, so that, because again, in terms of the overall ECOWAS Convention of Free Movement of Goods and People, so we want to make there has to be stability for that.
Well, talking about ECOWAS, Your Excellency, there's been a coup in Niger, and that has gotten everybody talking. There's also a plan for military intervention, which we saw the deadline expiring, the other day. Does this remind you of something similar, that had happened in the Gambia?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, at the whole ECOWAS region, we want stability, all right? Because without stability, development is going to be very difficult to take place. Within the ECOWAS region, we have seen those countries that are most stable are the ones that profit most, And I think even I can say we always talk about Cape Verde Island. Cape Verde Island is, had independence in the mid-70s. All right, one of the poorest in this sub-region. But now they are the only middle-income country in this sub-region. Why? Because of stability. People feel confident as far as the democratic processes are concerned. And I think this is something that we have to encourage in ECOWAS as a whole. All right. It's unfortunate that this thing has happened, but I am confident that the heads of state and government in ECOWAS, I think they are saying that diplomacy is the first point. Like you mentioned, in our case, during the impasse, you see a lot of people moving out of the country. All right, because if people don't feel safe, they have to run away, and then that creates more instability as far as the country is concerned. So we hope that peace will come back to Niger, and of course democracy will also continue to prevail in that country, so stability comes back to enable development to take place.
Well, about the military intervention, what is the stand of the Gambia?
I mean, the stand of the Gambia is alongside with that of ECOWAS to make sure that diplomacy is the preferred approach, and even in the communique they have said that military intervention is a last resort. So that is what the Gambia is agreeing to as far as the whole ECOWAS is concerned.
Well, there seem to be more sanctions on Niger than what we saw, on Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Why do you think that is so?
I mean, I think experience also in the past, we have seen that in the past, some sanctions were imposed on Nigeria by the people of Nigeria, and I think they have seen success. Hopefully, they feel that this time there's more chance of success. And of course, we have to remember that each country is different. Circumstances are different. Hopefully, and I think as we have to, first of all, accept that as far as ECOWAS is concerned, there is still a president in place. All right? Because I don't think there is any indication of resignation or whatever. So that is still the recognized, head of state. So as part of their protocols are concerned, we have to follow what is agreed when such incidents occur.
Well, Your Excellency, there are also some concerns that ECOWAS over time has failed to be ECOWAS of the people. And there seems to be divide among countries in ECOWAS on some issues. How can we make ECOWAS of the people?
I mean, we have to accept that there are some legacies. There are some legacies. We want to come together as ECOWAS, but at sometimes also countries want to now be closing into themselves. We always argue, if we want to have ECOWAS of people, we have to now forget about the borders. All right, the borders have to open, but in some countries will have open borders, and other countries will bring in some more restriction. And again, unless we integrate our economies, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to take some time, but I guess as we allow more movement of people, it's going to be much easier. I think that notwithstanding, we have to agree that ECOWAS actually have moved faster than many other sub-regions. Now, because some of us who travel in other regions, they will always be surprised how easy ECOWAS citizens are moving in and out. Maybe with goods it becomes difficult, but for people to move is actually much easier than in other sub-regions of the continent. But there is still some work that needs to be done.
Well, still on ECOWAS, Your Excellency, a lot of people believe that there may still be coups in other countries. That's the fear, actually, and that's because of the long stay in power by some leaders in ECOWAS. How can we change that narrative?
I think, again, how long a person stays in power should depend on the people. I think the narrative should be, let's make sure that we have some democratic institutions that people feel confident in. I mean, however long one person stays, you cannot justify that by a military coup. The people can be dissatisfied, the youths can be dissatisfied, but let's work together to make sure that we create more opportunities for the youths and make sure that there is confidence as far as the democratic institutions of the states are concerned. This is my view.
Should one term be enough for a president?
It depends on the people. All right? It depends on the people. First of all, we have to know that there is continuity in government. Right? There is continuity in government. If the systems are in place, whether one term, two term, or whatever, I mean, I don't think that matters. All right? Some people can achieve a lot within one term. Others may achieve 2 or 3 terms to whatever their program is. But what is important is the will of the people have to be expressed through the ballot box. I think that is what is important, and is what we should encourage.
Well, Your Excellency, you took over after a predecessor who, according to reports, many Gambians placed a lot of hopes on and were awaiting institutional reforms and system change. What should the people be expecting from you?
I mean, thank you very much. Of course, we pray for the departed soul. We know that he had brought a lot of expectation in this country, and as I said earlier on, there is continuity in government. All right, if government embraces those changes, that is the same thing that we want to continue. We hope that over time, people will feel confident that we are now continuing that legacy. I don't want to maybe talk about myself, but maybe just to say that I've worked with him for quite a long time. He was my boss for many years, so I know we will do our best. I think that's all we can say. and hope that the Gambian people will be confident, in what we are doing.
Well, Your Excellency, just one more issue that escaped our conversation earlier. The Equus Commission is currently being headed by a Gambian. What other reforms should we expect to come from him?
I think first of all we have to congratulate Dr. Toure. But again, yes, we are happy that he's a Gambian. But Dr. Toure is an experienced civil servant and an experienced diplomat. So we're hoping that as an experienced diplomat, he can help improve the lot of ECOWAS. Yes, to show that as Africans, as West Africans, we can move our organization, to actually play a more prominent role as far as the sub-region is concerned. I think this is what we are hoping and we can expect from him based on his experience.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, we've taken a lot of your time, and in rounding off, of course, this conversation, sir, where do you expect to see the Gambia in the next few years? Because I'm sure you have a lot of good intentions for the people of this country, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, as we've alluded to earlier on, we have come through a difficult period of 2 decades of dictatorship. Before that, Gambia was seen as the bastion of democracy and stability. Now that after these 2 decades of dictatorship, we have now come back to democracy. The initial stages is challenging. We will have teething problems. What we have confidence in our system, like I mentioned, if we continue to stress the separation of powers and people have confidence in our system, we are hoping to see some development taking place, and Gambia will now continue to reclaim that democratic champion that we had, and I'm sure because now one of the things that we are seeing is we are seeing a lot of Gambians from the diaspora coming back to invest. That's sort of like confidence as far as the system is concerned, feeling that now their funds are safe. Other Africans in the diaspora are also coming to the Gambia to invest. I think we believe that Gambia is on the right track. Now that we are completed the election cycle, everyone is now have their hands on deck as far as developing the country is concerned. So we are very hopeful. I mentioned Cape Verde. I'm sure very soon we will overtake Cape Verde as far as stability and development is concerned.
Of course. What will be your final words, to the Gambian people as well as the continent, the region and the continent as a whole?
Again, like I said, I just re-echo what His Excellency President Adama Barrow says. Now that elections are over, let's work together, to see Gambia. It is Gambia that we see, not any political party. All right? Because we are here today. Tomorrow somebody else will be here. So we have to think about what legacy we can leave behind. All right? Because at the end of the day, you play a role, somebody else comes to play a role, and this is only the place we have. We have Gambia. We don't have anywhere else. After office, you are going to stay in the Gambia, and that's what His Excellency President Barrow has said. Let's make sure that this is a welcoming place for everybody. When it comes to politics, we can have our politics, but when it comes to development, let's work together and develop this country for the benefit of all who live in it.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the opportunity. Just before we lock up our camera, for our listeners in Senegal and across West Africa and the over 150 radio stations that we've partnered with, we'd just like to say a word to them, because this interview is not just going to be in the Gambia or Senegal, but across the world. Just your word to them, directly to them.
Yeah, my word directed to them is, like I said earlier on, as West Africans, let's work together for the benefit of the sub-region. We have an ECOWAS that everybody, is looking up to. All right? Let's work together, whether we are from Nigeria, from Senegal, from Cape Verde, from Guinea-Bissau, or whatever. Let's work together as Africans, and West African in particular. And as mentioned, West Africa of movement of people should be made a reality. All right? It doesn't matter where you are born, so long as you are in the sub-region, wherever you work, you should do it in the best interest of the whole sub-region.
Excellency, thank you so much for talking to West Africa Democracy Radio.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.